Call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Mr. Brophy.
Here.
Ms. Duroff. Mrs. Kratz. Ms. Nyman.
Here.
Mrs. Scott.
Here.
Mr. Brad Updegrove.
Here.
Mr. Roger Updegrove.
Here.
Mr. Zawada.
Here.
Mr. Panarello.
Here.
All present.
Let's rise for a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Board of School Directors held an executive session prior to the April 22nd, 2024 meeting. Topic was personnel. Session lasted about 45 minutes. Board of School Directors also met today at, that's not the right. Met today for personnel as well. Meeting lasted approximately an hour. Student recognition.
Mrs. Moore?
Yeah, I'm not at this week. I'm like, that's not right.
Good evening. For those of you who don't know, my name is Allison Moyer. I am the Communication Specialist for Boyertown Area School District. Tonight's recognition showcase will begin with our youth and government team. YAG has been part of BASD for many years in collaboration with our local Y. Mrs. Torsha had the pleasure of seeing our students excel in Harrisburg earlier this spring, and in her words, it is time for recognition. I'm happy to introduce Alicia Donnell, who's back there. They're going to come over in just a minute. She is the executive director of the Boyertown and Pottstown branch of the Greater Philadelphia YMCA. And Alicia will introduce our BASD YAG program students and talk a little bit about their advisors as well here in the district. So come on in, everybody. You can come whichever way you want. If you're comfortable climbing over this stuff, or you can go around.
So push forward.
Okay, the girls are going to do it. Thanks. Just a few of our friends came tonight. So I'm Alicia. I am the executive director at Boyertown and Pottstown YMCA. I have been lucky enough to be a part of this program since we started it a few years ago. I don't know if I want to date myself. I think we're we're at about year 13 of the program, and every year I'm more and more amazed by our students and what they do in Harrisburg. It's amazing to see students from Boyertown dressed up, sitting on the Capitol floor, sitting in the House of Representatives chairs and the Senate seats, up in the judicial courtroom, arguing their cases, arguing their bills that they worked really hard on all year. Seeing them get the satisfaction when they get a bill signed by the youth governor, and all that. The students are really going to talk about the program, so you just have a little bit of a better idea of the program. But just want to thank the district for continuing to support the program, continuing the partnership with the Y. We've had some really good advisors, Mr. Rothermel from Middle School West, Mr. Howard from Middle School East, Mrs. Snyder from the high school, and then we have Kate with us, who's a Boyertown graduate, was a youth and government alumni, is now a nurse, but still gives her time back to the Y and helps advise at the Y for the students that come and meet with us at the Y. We try to make sure that any student that wants to participate in the district can, so if they can't get it a part of a club period, they can still come meet with us at the Y. If they're overreached with sports and other activities, because most of these students are in a ton of activities. We try to meet them where they're at so they have the opportunity to participate. So I'm going to introduce Gabby Martin, Izzy Sandoval, and Kaylee Reinboth. They're going to give an overview of the program. It really is a student-led program. Kate and I don't have to do a whole lot. The kids really take over. So they are going to take over right now.
Hi, I'm Gabriella Martin. I'm a current senior, and I've been a part of YAG for the past 5 years.
Hi, I'm Isabel Sandoval. I'm a junior at the high school, and this is my 5th year in the program.
Hi, my name is Kaylee Reinboth. I'm a current sophomore at BASH, and this is my 5th year in the program.
And like what was previously said, we're here to talk to you all about youth and government. Next slide.
What am I doing? Okay, so I'm going to cover the program information. So youth and government is... I can't read that. I can't read that.
National.
Okay. It's a national YMCA program that empowers students from every corner of the U.S. by giving them the opportunity to learn about and experience government policies and... How do you pronounce that?
Behind you too.
How is it?
Yeah. Learn about and experience government policies and mythology and person.
I cannot pronounce that. Wait, what's the last word? I can't read. First hand. Sorry, guys. Oh, wait, I'm still going. Okay.
Behind.
I'm gonna actually move. Sorry.
Yes.
Pennsylvania State YMCA Youth and Government is the only student-run, student-led model government experience of its kind in PA. This year, nearly 700 students across the Commonwealth participated in the program as active participants in legislative, judicial, and the executive process. Boyertown has participated since the 2012-2013 school year, and this year we took 64 delegates from West, East, and the high school delegations.
So over the school year, we put a ton of work into what we do. For the legislative branch, we all work on bills which directly replicate what goes into the legislative process. The judicial people are working on briefs, kind of writing like real lawyers as they work on their side in what's essentially a Supreme Court case, and members of the media are busy honing their skills as they work in videography, photography, writing, and also social media. Our first event of the year takes place in September. That is servant leaders training, where all the servant leaders from each of the delegations come forward and they kind of learn how to run this program, what they need to be an effective leader, how to run and manage a club, essentially. And that's also when people kind of decide what they want to do in youth and government. If they're not quite sure, they can also get some more information at Elections Convention, which is our second event of the year and takes place in November. We all head over to, on the east side, Springfield Township High School, where students run to essentially be leaders on the state level. I myself ran and was elected as a Gold House Committee chair, which essentially means that I was in charge of delegating over a committee, which is basically bills organized by topic. You can also run for justice positions, associate justice positions in the Supreme Court, as well as press managers in the press corps. This is also kind of where students, like I mentioned before, get more information on the club and really decide what they want to do. Students will then also vote for these positions as well. It all culminates at the end of the day where all the elected positions are announced and you have your servant leaders on the state level.
So from there, we really dive into our own branches and work on preparing for our main event, the Model Convention in April. So in preparation, legislative students draft a bill and judicial students study a case, write briefs, and present oral arguments. So in February, we all attend the pre-legislative session, which is almost like a mini model convention, intended to collaborate with individuals all from the eastern side of the state. So here we will get feedback on bills by presenting in committees, and judicial students will dive into studying the case and preparing for their own roles. After pre-leg, we will have some time to rewrite and finish our final copies of bills and briefs before finally submitting them to the statewide leadership team so they can better prepare for the convention. And then once submitted, we focus on improving our own public speaking skills at our meetings. So we might debate, practice parliamentary procedure, practice speeches or oral arguments. And this year we were also fortunate enough to meet with a state representative, an attorney, and Judge Boder, who is actually a Boyertown graduate. And by April, we're ready to show off what we've been working hard on all year. At the Capitol building in Harrisburg for our model convention, we work with delegates from all over the Commonwealth. And we hope to achieve goals within our own branches. So for example, specifically for press, many hope for their pieces to be published. For judicial, students aim to get to their final rounds of their competition, and legislative students hope to get their bills passed by both houses and signed by the youth governor. And then after model, we start preparing for next year by holding elections for the next year's leadership team, which is sort of where we're about right now. Yeah.
So I'm going to cover our trip that we took in April this year. So we had 2 students elected as committee chairs, which includes Kaylee Reinboth and Jillian Ritchie. And we had our first ever student elected as justice in our program, so that was Jayla Allen Bates. Boyertown had 5 bills passed this year and signed by the youth governor. We did have some winners at the for awards in the convention. So for outstanding gold committee chair was Jillian Ritchie, which is an 8th grader at West. Kaylee Reinboth won the outstanding gold representative, and then the San Condrick Spirit Award was given to Alexis Henderson, which is an 8th grade gold senator. Jillian Ritchie, 8th grade gold committee chair. Aslyn, how do you say it?
Weidenmoyer.
Thank you. She was an 8th grade gold attorney, and then Gabriella Martin, which is a 12th grade blue senator.
There is also national conventions as well for people who want to get even more involved on the national level. In July, we have the Conference on National Affairs, which I myself was actually chosen to go to. The Conference on National Affairs is a meeting of about 33 to 36 states from across the country, each with their own state youth and government programs, who come together to discuss national and international issues. My issue this year is working on setting national standards for education, as well as compulsory school attendance ages to help bridge the gap that is often missed when kids aren't able to attend school on time. We also have NJC, which is the National Judicial Competition, which our own Allie Brisbois was lucky enough to attend. We're really proud of you. The National Judicial Conference is held in Chicago during, I believe, late July, and basically they work as both attorneys and justices to further simulate the Supreme Court process. So I was selected for the Conference on National Affairs, Allie was selected for NJC, and then we had 3 alternates as well. We had Anna John, Alexis Henderson, and Amari Henslop, all in 8th grade.
So for the next few slides, we'd just like to highlight our delegation and our achievements in some pictures. So the picture on the left is of the 5 seniors this year with their graduation cords. And on the right is the whole Boyertown delegation, so from both middle schools, East and West, and the high school in the back of the Capitol building. Can I play the video?
So since the video is not, no, it's okay. The bill signing ceremony, this is one of many that has taken place over the weekend. So over here is just, we had the youth governor, and she signs the bills, and we just get to walk around and we get a pin for it, and that's about it.
Oh, this one. There we go.
Thank you. These are more pictures of our delegation. While on Thursday we all came to the Capitol, not all of us immediately jumped into action. I myself, as well as other elected officials, as well as the entire press branch, we work all day Thursday prepping. Press has a ton of training that they go into with interviewing and review of all the branches, while as myself as an elected official worked to basically understand how to run my committee, how I should be interacting with delegates, and overall how to use my powers as committee chair. Those who were not attending the luncheon and the training hours were given a tour of the Capitol, as well as explored, I believe it's called Capitol Park?
City Park, yeah.
Yeah, City Park, where they played games and really bonded as a delegation.
So the next slide highlights our judicial branch. So as Kaylee, I believe, said, Jayla Allen Bates became our first ever student to be elected as a justice within the program. So the left two pictures are with her and some Boyertown delegates, and on the right, you can see the judicial delegates preparing for their next rounds of the competition. Do you want to talk about the pictures?
So we have a couple pictures on this slide. So as we see that we have people that sit in the House. So legislative is actually in the chamber sessions in the Capitol building, which is a really neat experience because not everyone has that opportunity to actually sit at these desks and work from there. Don't know what you're really doing there, Kaylee, but
I'm working very hard.
Another delegation picture that we got on Friday, they give out the free food that's left over. So a lot of people took that. And then the last picture over there is just me speaking on my bill when I was trying to get it passed.
Okay. So before we end, I would like to go back to the one slide. If I can go back here and highlight the seniors receiving their graduation cords that for the clubs that they have participated in throughout their years at Bash. To be honest, I was disappointed to find out that I'm not currently allowed to wear my youth and government cord at the graduation ceremony. Like I said earlier, I've been a part of the club for the past 5 years, and I would not be where I am today without this club. Because of this program, I've become a better leader, better public speaker, and individual as a whole. It is because of this program that I'm pursuing political science next year at George Washington University. Ultimately, wearing this cord is more than just giving me credit for my time. Rather, it allows us to express our love for this club and give back to such an incredible organization. I would love for you to reconsider allowing the youth and government seniors to wear their cords for this year's graduation. I am permitted to wear my graduation stole for National Honor Society, a cord for Green Cord. Every student who commits and dedicates countless hours and experiences to these student organizations should have the same opportunity to have these clubs represented at the graduation ceremony. I'm asking for you to reconsider the current youth and government seniors and allow them the opportunity to represent this organization. If it is too late to allow these seniors to express themselves this way, I urge you all to consider it as an addition for next year, as it is a nationally recognized program. Thank you. I appreciate you guys taking the time to consider us as a whole. And we can go to the next slide.
So we'd just like to take a moment to thank all the people who have really gotten us here today. We'd like to thank our school administrators, our school board, parents, hi mom and dad, who have really supported us. I know, as we previously mentioned, their advisors. Kate is with us today. Alicia is here with us today. There are also those at the school level directly who work with each other. I know Mr. Rothermel is definitely a huge inspiration for me. I would not be standing here. I would not be where I am today without his guidance and leadership. And I am so truly appreciative of that and everything that the youth and government advisors do for all of us. They really change lives, and it's so important that we continue to support them. And we'd also like to thank the YMCA for helping us to grow and continue to support us as a program. Like I mentioned before, this is such an important club, especially as a delegation, to have. Civics education is something that we're all super passionate about, and we love to share with others. And it really means the world that we're able to meet like this and be able to discuss important issues, as well as have a place to actually meet. I know before we kind of struggled with that, but it means the world that we're able to have this. So we'd like to thank everyone who makes it possible.
Well, I just would like to thank you for coming out and for doing an awesome job of explaining your experiences there at the state capitol. As I shared, each year Mr. Stout and I have taken the opportunity to come and watch you all in action, and it's truly something that you need to experience, and it's open to the public. Everyone could actually take a ride up there when our youth and government students are in attendance and watch them on the floor and watch them in action, and they have to announce who they are, so you know all of the Boyertown students who are on the floor and who have X amount of minutes to speak, and then pass their time on to someone else. So that was really exciting. I was starting to check the boxes. Okay, 1, 2, 3. How many of you were out there? And it truly is just an inspiration to see how enthusiastic and the enthusiasm that you have for this. And thank you for sharing. I believe that our board would, truly enjoy this presentation, and I'm sure they had no idea some of the things that you all were involved with. So thank you as well. You weren't speaking, but your presence, at the Capitol during that trip was just amazing. So nice job, everyone. Thank you. Do you have anything to say?
Thank you for your time.
Mr. President?
Yeah, Miss Torsia loves this so much, she literally sends me pictures while you guys were there. I'm getting texts constantly, I'm like, what is she doing? These are all pictures of you guys. You were very impressive. You spoke very well. Your parents should be proud. You inspire me. I hope a lot of kids, the future's bright. Thanks.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
So I just want to take a moment and congratulate the seniors and make a prediction that this is not the last time we will be seeing some of the underclassmen at some of these student recognitions. So I'm going to ask you to stay put while we do a second recognition showcase. Our next showcase features Laura Adams. Laura is a senior at Bash, if you want to come on up and join me, and also a member of Bechtelsville Scout Troop 511. Laura earned her Eagle Scout designation by creating an alphabetical list of the people buried in Fairview Cemetery with their location and information, including the victims of the Opera House fire 116 or some odd years ago. She also placed markers at each of the graves of the fire casualties. She is here tonight to share the project with us. A copy of her book is available to the community at the Boyertown Area Historical Society. The Historical Society had the honor of participating in Laura's Eagle Scout Court of Honor earlier this year and had this to say. Laura's dedication to preserving history shines through her Eagle Scout project, mapping and documenting the resting places of those lost in the Opera House fire. I'm going to turn it over to you, Laura. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Okay, I'm Laura Adams, and I'm going to start with that I've been in Scouts for 5 years now. I've always wanted to be in Scouts, and I've loved it all, like, how long I've been in it. I was just, like, earned to be in Scouts. Like, I was raised with my brothers doing Scouts, and I've always wanted to join them in it, and I was, like, inspired to be a Scout. And I started with my Eagle Scout project meeting with the Boyertown Historical Society with Rachel Kaler. Me and her kind of talked about what I wanted to do, and so we came up with ideas of how we can give back to our community and our society, and we thought of the Opera House fire victims, and it was very hard to find like books that would give us details about the Opera House fire. There was some like details, but the map that we were given wasn't accurate, so we needed to make a more accurate map to find all those victims that were that died in this accident. And we traveled all over Pennsylvania to go through every cemetery that we needed to find all the victims. The main cemetery that we were looking in was Fairview Cemetery, and there was all over Pennsylvania. One was in Philadelphia, and we went through alphabetical order of everyone that died. There was 170 victims, and then we went to the cemetery and talked to Lisa Gable. She helped with us, and she found accurate like death tape certificates of everyone that died, and some of those certificates weren't accurate, so it was very hard to find out what their real names were, because they like made nicknames or like their married names or their maiden name. It was very hard to find everyone, so I got a lot of people from NJRTC. I've been in NJRTC for 4 years now, and I just enlisted in the United States Navy because of that, and it inspired me a lot. And also I got help with my scout troop. I'm the first girl to be an Eagle Scout in my troop and Bechtelsville troop, and that inspired me a lot too. I had a lot of help throughout my Eagle Scout project, and I just want to thank all those people that helped me with my Eagle Scout project, the Boyertown Historical Society, Dennis Schaefer, Lisa Gable, which works at the Fairview Cemetery, Luann Zibini, I can't say her last name. She's the Historical Society president, and my Navy ROTC, and Tim Barrett, which is our scout troop leader, and Dennis Schaefer helped me print all these papers out. I think there's around 250 pages in my book, and we put one at the Historical Society, the Fairview Cemetery, and there's one at the State Theater, like, to help people understand this tragic event that happened to a lot of people's family and how many people perished in this fire. It's a really tragic event, and I just really wanted to help people understand, like, what happened and how many people, like, perished and how their families reacted to this. A lot of the people's families passed away after the people passed away from grief and pain, and it's just a really big impact in our town and society. And I just want to thank everyone for helping me with this, for my family, for ROTC, for my scout troop, and for scouts in general.
Don't worry about that.
And I just want to, like, say thank you for everyone who helped me, and I hope that I impact a lot of younger women to change, to make an impact in the world, and to know that they have the power to make an impact and to do a lot of stuff in their society and community as a whole. So thank you for having me.
Laura? If I'm not mistaken, being an Eagle Scout is sort of a tradition in your household, is it not?
Yeah.
How many Eagle Scouts have come out of your household?
I have an older brother. He's also an Eagle Scout, and my two uncles are, and my grandfather is one.
So it's a long tradition you're following.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you, Laura, for your passion, and I'm sure that your community is going to enjoy the work that you have done, and it does help to heal, especially being able to, have something to reflect on. So thank you, and thank you for coming and sharing your Eagle Scout project. That's quite an honor. So
Thank you for having me.
congratulations.
I'm excited to read the book. I am one that likes to read about local history, and so I'm excited for that. Thank you.
Congratulations on being the first female,
Thank
first
you.
of all. And it is a big part of Boyertown's history for that fire.
Mm-hmm.
And I would take great pride in being able to read that.
Thank you.
As a Boyertown Scout, I was an Eagle Scout also, so I know what you went through to get all them badges. It was a lot of work.
Yeah. I have,
Thank you.
I think 38.
All right, well, I want to take a moment just to thank all of my recognition showcase students. If YAG wants to head out that door, and Laura and your grandmother want to meet me out in the lobby, thanks for being here tonight, and congratulations on all the amazing work that you're doing. All right, thank you.
Dr. Cindy Marazeski from Devapar, please.
Good evening. Thank you, Mrs. Torscher, for putting me on after all of that. It's a tough act to follow. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for having me here tonight to give an update on what Devilpar, through me, I guess, is doing at the Boyertown High School. I have one of my colleagues from Devilpar, Dr. Sue Sneath, is here also for a little support, and I did ask Mr. Sparks to come back for some support too, so he was kind enough to be here tonight also. I know that Mr. Sparks gave a presentation at the last board meeting, so I'm just kind of going to include that in what I'm doing, just maybe present it a little bit differently. I did watch the video from the last board meeting, and I heard some of your questions and comments, so I'm hoping that maybe this presentation addresses some of those, but you can ask questions at the end too. So when we were first asked to come in or to have a meeting to discuss some of the needs, where we were at that point in time at the high school was Mr. Sparks was brand new. I came into the high school on February 5th, and I think 2 weeks maybe you were on the job, Mr. Sparks, although he had lots of experience as an assistant principal. It was new to the position. Dr. Berge had been there. He was the old timer for just about 1 year. Mr. Hauk was brand new to the position, and Mr. Ryan Venner, was not even there yet. He had a couple more weeks before he was coming in. So there was a lot of transition, as you all know, at the high school over the past year, over the past 9 months. And what we were looking for was a way that we could provide some consistency, some support. Mr. Stout, Mrs. Torsha, looking to help support them and provide them for the best environment for success. So what I'm going to do in just a couple slides, the first 2 slides, is I just pulled some of the statements out from the scope of work that Devilpar has with Boyertown School District. And this is, most of this is exact wording from that. Dr. Mirzeski will coach, mentor, and provide thought partnership to Mr. Sparks on a regular basis. Probably more than he wants. Accompany Mr. Sparks to observe, analyze, problem solve, and assist in improvement of systems. Provide support on the development of the new assistant principals. Observe the current systems that Mr. Sparks perceives as in need of improvement for feedback. And then in collaboration with the leadership team, implement plans for the short-term 23-24 school year and develop plans for the long-term 24-25 and moving forward. So really the work here was being a partner with the leadership team, which they have been very open to, very receptive to, and helping them work through as best I can. I'm there a few hours, maybe 3 days a week, so a total of 12 to 15 hours a week. But in that time to help work with them both in immediate situations as well as helping with some long-term planning. Really, if we look, I kind of tried to summarize it in this slide, at the overall goal was trying to bring an experienced, objective, external eye to the leadership team and to the leadership discussions in order to build the capacity of the new leaders. It was not intended for it to be an audit or an evaluation of the new leaders. They're brand new, so that really wouldn't be a fair situation, or to be an audit of all of the systems in their entirety, but to really work hand in hand with the team to help bolster them up and to help support them and to help through professional development. It's sort of the analogies that I think of when I think of this type of work is I think of football. I'm a big football fan, go Birds. And I think of the coaches there. The coaches aren't teaching the players how to play football. The players know how to play football. But the coaches are there to help them in their real-time situations, to prepare them for going into those situations, and to help them support them as they are in those situations. And that's sort of how I see the role of coaches, mentors, and thought partners as we're working with the leadership team. The idea of coaching and mentoring, is not new. We see it all the time in school districts. We see it with our cooperative teachers who are working with student teachers. We allow the student teachers to have time in the classrooms to come in, work with a cooperating teacher, and to develop those skills and to have those real-time situations. We have a lot of research that shows that this is the best type of professional development to have. So you're to be commended for utilizing the coaching mentoring system to help support your principals and assistant principals at the high school. Having somebody there to be working through all of that is really, really the most effective way. I've done research on it myself, and it is hands down has improved and helped develop all of our professionals. So what do? So there's a lot that I do. Mr. Sparks, if you think of anything, just jump in here too. Cafeteria and transition procedures. I have spent a lot of time in the cafeteria, a lot of time in the hallways, and I know that was a topic that came up at the last board meeting, and I'm going to address that a little bit in an additional slide. But spent a lot of time in the cafeteria, attended the mid-team meetings as I could, as I was there for, attended counselor meetings, and I got to meet the counseling staff, which was really great too. Had individual meetings with Mr. Sparks and assistant principals. Mr. Stout was over at the high school quite often in some of those meetings too. And then there was a lot of time in the main office, and that time in the main office, it was not clerical time in the main office, but it was time in the main office observing how the principals and assistant principals were kind of, I don't want to say observant how they were doing their job, but the things that they were needing and the supports that they were needed. And every once in a while, Mr. Sparks would say to me, we need to go down to the nurse's office. I'd head down there with him. Do you want to go check out some video with me? We would go check out the video that needed to be checked out. I even did coverage. I covered a pre-K counts classroom. I covered an autistic support classroom because they didn't have coverage, and one of the principals or assistant principals would have had to go there, but I was there to cover it for them so they could go about and do their jobs they're supposed to be doing. I did go with the team. They invited me to go with them to visit their Spring-Ford district when we went down there to get some feedback and some input there. And I was just that extra body sometimes that was just needed to go here, go there, watch a hallway, go back into the cafeteria, take care of scheduling. We were doing a lot around the scheduling too. So that's really where all of the time allocations went to. By the way, I started February 5th, and we'll be finished up around June 6th or 7th. We have some plans to have some meetings that last week with me coming to the school. I'll still be available, of course, through the summer for the team if they need that. So I heard last week that some folks were asking some things about strengths and areas of improvement. I'll go through that a little bit, although that really wasn't the focus of what our work was. When Mr. Sparks presented last week, he gave you a whole bunch of things that were happening and that the team was working on, the team was doing. That comes from these next few slides. So I kind of broke it out and kind of gave you the background. He was showing you some of the end results. So I'm going to give you a little bit of some of the background and some of my perspective of the team and of what's happening at the high school. The admit team, the new admit team, really have jumped in. Baptism by fire is what is happening. Baptism by fire, and I do believe in baptism by fire, and they are answering that call, and they have really been able to come together and work as a team. Over that Easter break week, we did have a little time to spend together, not only in the trip down to Spring-Ford, but also we spent a little time together having some meetings, doing some team building, et cetera, and they really are getting to know each other and are doing a great job in trying to be reactive and proactive and all of that at the same time. The support staff at the high school, in the office, I've got to work with them a lot. There's some new folks in there. But again, they have really stepped up to the task. They've been thrown in the middle of the year to some situations, but they are learning very quickly, strong learning curve. Folks that have been there a while, Eileen specifically in the office, as a steadfast cornerstone in that office, knows a lot of the history and has been through several principals, so she's really a big help. The teaching and educational support staff have really, I think, done, Jared, you could say, everything that you've asked them to do. And they have even volunteered to do some things that they see as need, like an Excel spreadsheet for this, or getting a list of students together for that. They've really been supportive and have stepped up to the call. The policies and procedures that are in place, I think, are working very well. There are some things that need to be tweaked. Jared and the team are on top of those things. We'll talk about those in a little bit. I've watched arrivals, I've watched dismissals, I've watched transitions through classrooms, and it really does happen well. I mean, the first day I was there, I was watching dismissal, and I was amazed at how quickly the students got out, well, how quickly they left school. I guess you shouldn't be amazed about that, but how quickly they left the building, got on the buses, went about their business. I mean, it was really, it was really very good. And I watched other things of the students moving through the building. I mean, if you think about it, there's over 2,000 students in that building. That's an amazing number of students to have in one building. That number is larger than some total school districts in this county. So that's a lot of students to have in a building, and a building that's, as you know, been added on. So it's very spread out, a lot to cover. Support from the central office and from the board. Thank you so much for the opportunity to work with this team. They really are. They really are great. But thank you for your support of your high school principals and assistant principals. They really are really stepping up there. I didn't mention the security staff. I guess they could go under educational support. They're constantly on the move. Officer French and the other security folks are really working all the time there and moving around constantly. All right. So as we were having all of our conversations, there's constantly little things that we're looking to tweak and procedures and ways of doing things that we're always looking at. So I tried to encapsulate this a little bit. And I think if we were going to say there were two areas for improvement, from just the short amount of time that I've been there, cafeterias and bathrooms and proactive systems for behaviors would be the two big umbrella areas that everything that Mr. Sparks presented last time and the things that I'm going to talk about kind of all dovetail together. Now, remember, we're not finished with the year yet. There's still a lot of things that need to be done. The team is going to be working all through the summer to be addressing some of these areas. But I think the idea of the cafeteria came up last meeting also, and you don't have to be in the building for more than a day to know that the cafeteria is a hot spot, is a trigger area. If you think about it, as I mentioned, 2,000 students in 4 lunch periods. That's approximately 500 students in the cafeteria at one time. It's a lot. And there are things that are in place right now. There's the security. There's at least 4 or 5 adults in that cafeteria at all times. There's one out in the hallway, which I'll talk about in a minute. And there's people in the hallway watching the students as they're moving to and from. There were some issues with the bathrooms around the cafeteria. So some short-term things that were put in place is that there was sign-out table was moved. Mr. Sparks moved it out to the, physically he did. I mean, he actually moved it out into the hallway at one point in time. And the sign-out's out there, so there's not a lot of clustering inside the cafeteria. And right now, only 7 male and 7 female students can go out to use those bathrooms at this point in time, because that's the number that those bathrooms can accommodate. The students aren't always pleased with that, but from what I observed, I highly recommend that that's continued through next year, because it is very, very helpful to not have everybody going out at the same time. When it first started, there was a lot of grumbling, but students seemed to adapt to it and kind of got the idea. We also went about looking at the cafeteria procedures for the students. Those things that are in the handbook, have rewritten them. They'll be working on that this summer. We also updated the cafeteria supervision responsibilities. That's for the adults that are going to be supervising, whether it's security or teachers or APs or whatever it is. We've updated that, and my recommendation is that we continue to share those to keep the consistency that everybody is on the same page. Also sharing the student procedures, not only in the student handbook, but in as many formats as possible, in the weekly or letters or emails to the students, in class meetings, however it might be, posting it in the cafeteria. Sometimes the students forget and need to be reminded, and it's nice to have those reminders around. They also, Mr. Sparks added some teacher hallway supervision by each of the bathrooms for as many periods as possible. And with the way the number of teachers and the teacher periods and so forth, he wasn't able to get coverage for every bathroom in every hallway for every period, but a lot of them were covered. And we have heard and we've noticed ourselves that that really has helped and made a difference in the hallways, around those bathrooms, in between periods, and even during the periods. So there's those are kind of some of the short-term things that we hope will continue there into long-term, but there's some other ongoing future discussions. One of the big things I noticed in the cafeteria, and again, it doesn't take long to notice it, is the lunch periods are 40 minutes long. In my opinion, that is way, way too long for the students in the cafeteria. That last 10 minutes is just, and if you ask anybody in education who's ever had to do cafeteria duty, they know that that's just a long time for students. No matter what their age, it's a long time for any reasons whatsoever. So there are some discussions around bell schedules for next year. Shortening the lunch period is not part of it, because it's just not possible to do at this point in time. That has to be done way, way ahead of time before you can just do it for next year. So Mr. Sparks and the team and I have had some conversations. I've provided some options for what the 30 minutes might look like and what the bell schedules might look like. But I would say that's one of my biggest recommendations around the cafeteria, is that we have to get the bell schedules shortened. Just too many kids. One thing I just want to mention, because I'm going to talk about course schedules too. So when I talk about bell schedules, I'm talking about exactly what it says: when the bell's ringing, how long are the classes, when are we done. I'm going to talk about course scheduling too, and course scheduling is different. Course scheduling is the program of studies that you folks see and approve every year. Course scheduling is who's teaching what, when are they teaching it, what students are in what classes, how many credits are they able to get. So that's kind of like a bigger, longer process. But the two do interweave, but they are very different, course schedules and bell schedules. Okay, the second big umbrella area that I gave you there was proactive systems for behavior. And this is the other end, it's the front end of discipline. The team spends a lot of time on discipline, a lot of times talking to students after something happens. What my recommendation is, and what the team has been looking at, is that start looking at other ways that you can put in more proactive systems for behavior. So these are some things that Mr. Sparks talked about last board meeting that would fall under this, things that the team is working on. The first is the counseling house structure with the administrators. So when it comes to the discipline piece, I did hear somebody say something about there not being discipline in the cafeteria. They had heard that maybe there wasn't. There definitely is discipline there. There's definitely, if something happens, there's people there monitoring it. There's security guards, there's APs, there's teachers. There's a lot of adults in the cafeteria at the time. Things do happen not only in cafeteria but in other parts of the building, and the team addresses those issues right away and goes through their progressive discipline process. That's the discipline piece. In order to prevent some of that happening, we need to have some of these connections in some way, shape, or form with the students. It's like when you talk about academics. When you talk about academics, you present a curriculum that is good for all, and you make sure that that's strong and foundational so that you don't have to have a lot of students going out for academic interventions. The same thing with behavior. You make sure that there's strong connections and strong foundations for the behavior so that there's not needed these discipline interventions along the way. So the more that gets invested on these pieces, the less has to be invested on the follow-up pieces. So the counseling house structure, Mr. Sparks talked about a little bit last time. There would be 2 counselors for each grade level, 10, 11, 12, as well as an administrator, one of the APs with each of those, 10, 11, 12. And the 9th grade is split among those 3 houses. It would be nice if there was a 4th separate piece for the 9th graders, but with the current structure, I think this will work very nicely. What this does is it gives those students that connection. These are my 2 counselors and my AP. It gives the parents those connections. These are my kids' 2 counselors and AP. If we need something, this is where we can go. So the counseling house structure should help with those proactive pieces. The next thing is the high school advisory period. The bell schedule is being moved so that one of the flex period that's currently in the schedule is getting moved into the high school advisory period. And this is going to be more than a homeroom. It's more than a take attendance. An advisory period is where that teacher is looking and working with those students and has a connection with the students, another adult connection with the students, that once in a while, they check on their academics. Once in a while, they check on what they're involved with socially, clubs, activities. Once in a while, they check on what's happening, with them, maybe if they want to talk about socially with their friends. If they want to go into that, they don't have to. But the teachers then have this time, a lot of time. And Mr. Sparks, how much time is it? I forget. 32 minutes. 32 minutes to take care of some, high school business forms and whatever, but also to make those connections. And then the other pieces were some adjustments to teacher schedules. Mr. Sparks is working to try, as we're doing the course scheduling, as we're trying to put together those where the teachers are next year, to have some time in there that the teachers are available for tutoring and intervention time. So these are just some other things that kind of fit into all of that, but that are going to be discussed also this summer. The high school course scheduling, we've been spending a lot of time with that. The student handbook pieces, the school counselor responsibilities, because we're moving that to the house. The house structure, so how will that affect some of their other responsibilities that they have, as well as administrator meetings and discussions. For the summer, in addition to everything else that the administrators are doing, hiring, prepping for the new school year, doing the handbook, finishing the course schedule, the logistics of the school year, there will also be conversations about refining the counselor responsibilities with the house structure. Continuing conversations around the bell schedule, especially with that lunch period and how some things might be helpful with that. And then one of the big topics is the discussion around electronic device in the student handbook policy. So that's the work that's been done up to this point since January 18th, and will continue through the summer. And that's sort of everything that we have. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you for that information, and if we can get a copy of that presentation, I'd appreciate it.
You can just send the one that you have, yeah.
But I still have concerns over students walking the hall. We're giving them now 32 minutes for homeroom. And all I'm hearing is how kids are walking the hallways. And I want to know, some without hall passes. So what is going on?
I'll let you go first, and then I'll.
All right, thank you, Cindy. Well, first off, Cindy, whoops, you're a little shorter than me, sorry.
Yes.
Thank you for your help throughout the year. Obviously, it's greatly appreciated. The homeroom advisory period still encompasses everything that we have the responsibility to do during homeroom, and that is, one, take attendance so we know who's in our building in the event of an emergency, in the event of, a parent calls in, hey, my student didn't get on the bus, did they make it to school, or they did get on the bus and they're not in school. You still have the career portfolio assignment, which will now be part of the expectations for the credits as a half a credit during your senior year. So while 32 minutes seems like a long time, it's really the flex period that we previously had added on to the 7 minutes of all the meticulous things we had to do every year or every day at the beginning of the school day to make sure we knew who was in the building. The other piece that's important is it's not a longer homeroom period. That mindset has to shift entirely. This is almost like each homeroom teacher is now a case manager for their homeroom so that they can check in with them, so they can check the students' grades, so they can check to see, hey, look, Mr. Stout, doesn't look like you're doing so good in math. Let's go talk to your math teacher quick, and I'll send you to Mr. Hines so you can get extra help. Those are the things that the homeroom advisory should be taking care of. The other part is the other, like the TSA, the YAG groups, all those groups have the opportunity to not only do the career portfolio, but also continue with their work that they're doing in YAG that previously maybe they wouldn't have the ability to do so. So there's more than just homeroom expectations. As far as the hallways, we have put the hallway presence almost immediately. That was, I think, the end of January, February, right when I took over, and that has cut down tremendously. Do we need more help in the hallways? Absolutely, and that's why we're changing the way that we enabled our preps for next year to spread them out more, since we kind of shifted our focus from horizontal alignment, where we wanted our whole departments together, to now we're looking at kind of cross-curricular alignment, so we can kind of have different discussions as we make our action plans over the summer for the next school year. So kids still walk around, sure. They usually get in trouble, and that's why we're out there with our security to try to find them. And a lot of times it's the same kids. So we're pretty well aware of the ones who are out there, and we try to deal with them as best we can and, follow them, meet their needs.
Okay, that's one. The lunch periods. Since when did we go to 4 lunch periods and 40 minutes? I mean, we should be teaching more.
So we've had that schedule since I have been here. They've always.
Sorry for cutting you off. Let's just stick to the presentation. That stuff has nothing to do with her. The lunch period's nothing to do with her.
She brought up the lunch periods.
Yeah, but she doesn't control it. She didn't set it. Let's leave that for another time.
One of the things that I keep getting calls about is 2 things. The dress code, I think it's horrible. I went past there today and I was appalled. All I could see was sweatshirts, nothing after the length of the sweatshirt. We have a handbook that tells you about the dress code. I don't know why we don't follow it or what we're doing about it. And the other thing was the cell phones.
That's the cell phones are under the electronic device student handbook policy, and you're working with teachers and putting together folks. They're having conversations about how to best handle that. There's some positives for cell phones. I mean, cell phones can be used instructionally, and there's a lot of good things to be done with cell phones. But if they're not being used, I know that Mr. Sparks is having some conversations around how to kind of control when they're being used and when they're not being used. So that's one of the things that's continuing there.
I'm sorry.
I know we're not here to talk, but I just want to talk about the hallway situation. I will say a couple of things, and this isn't data, and this isn't facts, and this is completely anecdotal, but I've noticed a difference in coming into the high school. The first couple weeks, maybe a week or so, 2 weeks, there was just this high kind of energy that I felt that was like, not a good energy, kind of just like a buzz, 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 buzz. Like everything seemed to be of like a crucial nature, and everything, the students, there were a lot of students in the hall. I can tell you that there's absolutely a difference in that right now. There is it's a much more, I think, maybe the students know and can feel that transitions and those things that have happened. They've had 3 principals in 1 year. Maybe they've felt that. Maybe they've understood that. But now I think they do feel that it is a sense of stability. I think the staff can feel that sense of stability, and have an understanding that there are going to be some consistencies. And again, it's anecdotal, but I have noticed in the hallways too that the number of students in the hallways is much decreased, and no student is in the hallway or walks down a hallway and passes an adult, passes Mr. Sparks, passes a security guard that they don't say, "Where are you going from? Where are you going?" Every single time that happens. So they're not wandering around the halls. They have 1 or 2, but they catch them always, so they get them. Any other questions? Well, thank you again for letting me be here. Thank you, Mr. Sparks, for being here. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Mierzewski, very much.
Reports, BCTC, Mr. Updegrove.
Yes, I have a couple announcements to make. The commencement day for the students from BAS was Bernard Reagan for RACC and Julian Dietrich for going to Alvernia, and Aaron Lapp going to East Penn Manufacturing. And I have announcements for 30 students who performed in the skills competition April 4th and 5th. The students came in first place and will compete the Skills National Leadership Conference in Atlanta, Georgia in June. The winners are Caden Hughes, well, she was Antietam, but Aiden First from Boyertown, construction occupation. He got a second in building construction. Iron Griffin, Boyertown Business Management, Entrepreneur, first place, entrepreneurship. Hannah Lindsay, Boyertown, Homeschool, Painting, Decorating, first place, Painting and Decorating. Joanne Minninger, Boyertown, Mechatronics, Engineering, Technology, first place, Electronics, Technology. And Dallas Boyden, Boyertown, Video and Media Content Production, third place, TV Production. We also had students in the Advertising and Arts. There was Abigail Dawson, Boyertown. We had 4 BCTC Video Media students. Dallas Vogan for Boyertown. We also had students invited to Pennsylvania, the Philadelphia Phillies baseball game on April 2nd to throw out the first pitch, and that was for Dallas Woodell. We had BC host of the Land and Sea Challenge. That would have been Jonathan Minninger of Boyertown, and the BCAC Air Challenge team, Alex Rolisi from Boyertown. And that's the end of my report. Next. Oh, also, the BCTC on their annual, as far as the the graduation is on the 28th of this month, which I will be not at the school board meeting. I'm still going to have it. I'm going to the graduation event at Santana Center. And also, as of the last meeting, the bill for the BCTC to Boyertown will be reduced at 0.19%. So the cost of all our students going there to us is actually going to go down. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have up the policy 249, bullying, cyberbullying. And one of the requirements by the Department of Education under the annual school safety reporting is that policy 249, bullying, cyberbullying, must be reviewed, updated every 3 years to stay in compliance with state requirements and mandatory reporting. That's due in July 2024. The current policy has been reviewed and has no changes. We have made sure that there were no updates that were required through PSBA, bringing anything new to our attention, and at this time, the policy will be brought forth unchanged. It has no updates, but we have at least reviewed it, and we're bringing it forward, and it'll be set below for first reading.
Public comment period number 1, Donnie Savage, budget.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to talk to you today to ask you to take some action on passing a resolution in support of the budget proposed by the state for public education, of which you are counting on in your budget. The story that I'm sure you've heard before is that early last year, a judge ruled that the state's method of funding public education in Pennsylvania is unconstitutional. The state ranks 45th among all the states in terms of the share that they provide for education, leaving the rest on property taxpayers. And as a result, the Basic Education Funding Committee was put together. They came up with a 7-year plan to correct for that. And then Governor Wolf, when he announced his budget for this year, it reflected the first year of that 7-year plan. So school districts all over the state are speaking up in support of this budget proposal in ways resolutions. They're going to Harrisburg. The Montgomery County IU and a lot of the school districts in Montgomery County went to Harrisburg, and many of them have passed resolutions. Tomorrow night, Pottsgrove and Pottstown have gotten together, and they're having a town hall to talk about how this underfunding has hurt our schools and how we really need this. So as I said, Boyertown is counting on this. It's an extra $2.1 million. But I can tell you, because I was in Harrisburg last year and I met with 2 of our legislators, that our legislators are not planning to vote for this budget in the way that it is, that you are counting on. So, and so I really want to urge you to take this small step to pass a budget, to pass a resolution. It doesn't take much. I provided you with the resolution, a sample resolution. You can modify it however you want, along with the steps on doing a resolution and what you do with that resolution. It's an important way to tell your legislators how important this is to you. And I'm speaking to you as a proponent of public education through Education Voters PA, but also as a resident and a taxpayer in our district. This has the possibility to lower the pressure on you to raise taxes. So I have the resolution for you again, in case you've lost it from the email. May I give it to the board secretary to pass out to the board members? Okay, thank you. And thank you for listening.
Lisa Hoga, personnel.
Okay, so before I get into my statement, I will stay within my 3 minutes, I promise. I just wanted to say how impressed I was by the YAG, the Youth in Government. What an amazing program. Our Eagle Scout and all that she did. and the BCTC kids who are always so amazing. It's great to just to be able to hear and see all the accomplishments that our students regularly accomplish. So it's amazing. Another thing I heard in the presentation with Mr. Sparks, the elongated homeroom or the homeroom advisory period. I'm a child welfare worker and I work in independent living. So I work with kids who are 16 and older, and I help them transition from being in the foster care system to being independent young people. And engagement is really the number one thing that we work. You know, the more we engage with these kids, the better they do. So I think that's a really awesome time to kind of build that in and to provide that extra support to kids. Okay, lastly, the reason I signed up. I didn't write anything out, so just bear with me. I just came to say thank you to Mrs. Torsha. You know, you came on at a time that was definitely challenging, with a board that had diverse perspectives, and you worked really hard, and you did a really great job of helping guide us and lead us through some really difficult times. So I just wanted to say thank you for your guidance, for your support, and for all that you've done for the district, and especially for the kids, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. So thank you. It is a great loss. I feel it deeply. And congratulations. Enjoy your time. I'm sure that you have fabulous plans. I know you do. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Mr. Foos, personnel agenda.
Please forgive my appearance. I came from soccer practice. No? All right. I wanted to speak on two personnel items. First being the retirement of Ms. Torsha. I was in board leadership at the time, and we were in quite a scramble. She certainly provided a steadying and calming presence and collaborative leadership that was very much needed at the time and has served this district well, and I wish her all the best in her retirement. I have also come tonight to speak about someone who is on tonight's personnel list to be approved for the Supervisor of Facilities and Operations. I believe that this district is going to be getting a wonderful addition. Joseph Slabonik is just an outstanding person. This is one of the few times in my life, and I've known him since I was maybe 5 years old. This is one of the few times I've seen him in a suit, because he is a very hardworking, roll up the sleeves, nose to the grindstone type of person. He's always been that way. I first met him on the wrestling mats. We became fast friends, family friends. I know that Joe went to Bloomsburg to study business, despite knowing full well that he would be taking over his family business in construction, doing barn restorations, and he had greatly expanded that, does absolutely amazing work. Would encourage you to look up Hometown Carpentry. Just look at some of the work he's done. It is incredibly impressive. He has a business mind, business acumen. He's a very smart and capable person. And the words that I wrote down to describe him are humble, hardworking, trustworthy, devoted, and the most important word is integrity. He is a great person, and he will be a great addition to this district. And I look forward to you approving him for the Supervisor of Facilities and Operations position shortly. Thank you.
At this time, we'll be looking for the board to approve the April 22nd, 2024 Board of School Directors meeting minutes.
Mr. Brophy,
Yes.
Ms. Deeroff,
Yes.
Mrs. Kratz,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
Yes.
Mrs. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Brad Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Roger Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Zawada,
Yes.
Mr. Panarello.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, under the superintendent's itemized
Can I
agenda.
break in for a second? I have a question for Mr. Panarello about the superintendent's itemized agenda for this meeting. I can't help but notice that there's several voting issues on this meeting. This is a committee meeting, not a voting meeting, and I understand that you can move things up, and you have, but I do believe that there's also needs to be a reason to move it from a voting meeting to a committee meeting. So I'd like to understand or hear what your reasons are on moving those forward.
This is how it was presented to me at my leadership meeting.
This is your meeting, Mr. Panarello. You decide what goes on.
And I was fine with it. I was comfortable with it.
But it's not fine. You're moving things from voting meetings to committee meetings. So that's okay. I'm not questioning that that can or cannot be done. But what I'd like to know is, I think the board and the public should understand why you've decided to go in that direction. So what you're telling me is you don't have a reason.
No reason at all. That's how it was presented.
So then why are we doing
It's
it?
basically laid out for me, and you know that because you did it for a year.
I know, I questioned that when I was doing it, but that's irrelevant.
Okay.
So
I
we're,
just told you. I answered.
no, that's no answer.
I said I was comfortable with it.
That's not an answer.
I don't know.
That's, what is your, what?
That is my answer.
So you have no reason to move this forward, you just do it because you felt like it,
Yes. And yes.
okay? I have to ask Mr. Sultanic a question. We have committee meetings and we have voting meetings. There's a reason we do that. Is this the proper way to be using committee meetings? To put voting into the committee meeting when there is no reason to do that, no urgent or emergent issue?
I am presuming we advertise this meeting as an action meeting. Is that correct? Yes. And do we regularly advertise our committee of the whole meetings as action meetings?
Say that we advertise them, I would say that yes, they're all advertised as action meetings because we have traditionally had actionable items on agendas.
I am not aware, and I'd have to go back and look particularly, but I do not believe our board policies say that at committee meetings, we don't take action. I think we have the latitude to take action under the circumstances, and assuming that to be the case, and as you know, I believe some of our policies with respect to how we operate in our committee meetings as well as our committee structure may not comport exactly with our practices. And it may be that our practice intent was for this meeting to be solely a committee non-action meeting to discuss items, but I believe in practice it certainly over the time period has morphed into something else. And I suggest that if that is an area of ambiguity, that we should address that in the future in policy. But I do not see anything per se illegal with what we're doing. If we didn't advertise today for an action meeting, then definitely your point would be absolutely well taken.
Okay, thank you. It's just, in my view, if you're going to move something from a voting meeting to a committee of the whole meeting, which is a discussion meeting, that's allowable, permissible, but in looking at the timelines of these individual issues, there doesn't seem to be an urgent need to do that or a good reason to do that. They could have gone to the next meeting, which is a voting meeting, and moved forward with that, unless there is a reason given that couldn't be done.
I do believe, though, on the approval of the 2024-2025 proposed general fund final budget, we do have a 30-day time limitation for posting that, and that would likely need to be acted upon today, or we're going to have a very late approval of the budget.
And that's the reasoning type of thing I'm looking for. That is a reason you would move it forward. However, I'm trying to understand. I also understand with the agreement of Pine Leaf Elementary School, we've been going back and forth that with the IU, and they are looking to move in soon. So I understand that going also. But I'm trying to understand what a DeHoy engineering proposal has to be at this meeting, especially considering the amount of dollars that are involved with that. That should be really at a voting meeting and not at a committee meeting. In fact, at this committee meeting, we should be discussing DeHoy Engineering Architectural Services proposal, not voting on it. Is that unreasonable?
I would say that that is not unreasonable. However, my understanding is that the information had been shared in the newsletter with respects to the architectural services that are being proposed, that communication was made, that the next steps was to move into a request for proposal for this project, and that we were at the point then of adopting that proposal. So that brings us to today.
At what point did we discuss the proposal?
We also had given notice to everybody on Friday. This could have been brought up during the week. I mean, over the weekend, and emails or discussed in phone calls. I don't think it should be barnstorming here is not the right way to do it. Okay, we know we could have discussed this or asked to be pulled off the agenda. It wasn't asked until now. And right now, it feels like there's a simple attack being placed on our president.
Mr. Zawada, I've asked the question. There's no attack. I'm asking why, when was the discussion held on this that should be in an open meeting? If you're saying I should have been sending emails asking questions about this, that sounds to be not the proper way to do it. If we're going to talk about this proposal and we're going to spend $275,000, it should be discussed in the open, in the public, and any issues that come out of that, not through emails back and forth among the board members. Is that?
This has been discussed, not this particular, but the process of putting the turf fields in, and this is one of the processes that needs to happen. So we were well aware of this is what was coming next down the road. And like I said, if you had concerns, you could have contacted the superintendent and said, hey, I think we need to pull this off the agenda. It's been happened before by other board members, and I think you've also asked to have certain things pulled off the agenda before. So I don't see why those concerns weren't brought up before 5 minutes ago.
I actually think it should be on the agenda, not voted on the agenda. It should be on a committee of the whole meeting for discussion, not for voting. What is the urgency of voting for it at this meeting? Could you explain?
Well, it's on a meeting. We're going to be voting on it. You're welcome to discuss it prior like we normally do.
There's no time to go over the discussion. So why? I don't get why we have committee meetings on issues like
I've
this.
actually brought this up before, saying that everything should be done like that too.
Then
in
why
the future.
aren't we?
This is how it was proposed to me. I was fine with it.
We can make that change right now.
I'm not going to make it right now. Maybe in the future.
That's definitely up to you.
First item under the itemized agenda is for the Board of School Directors to approve, I'm sorry, I'm off of the wrong one. Sorry, yeah, it's the lease. Looking for the approval, where is my darn, the Board of School Directors to approve the agreement of lease for the former Pine Forge Elementary School to Berks County Intermediate Unit through June 30th, 2027, unless extended or sooner terminated, subject to finalization by the administration and solicitor.
Zawada moves.
Mr. Brophy.
There has been a lot of discussion about this back and forth, so I vote yes.
Ms. Duroff.
Yes.
Mrs. Kratz.
Yes.
Ms. Nyman.
Yes.
Mrs. Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Brad Updegrove.
Yes.
Mr. Roger Updegrove.
Yes.
Mr. Zawada.
Yes.
Mr. Panarello.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, I'm looking for the Board of School Directors to approve Policy 249 for first reading and to move it forward to the May 28th, 2024 Board of School Directors meeting for the second reading and approval.
Zawada moves.
I'll second.
Further discussion?
No, this is no changes, so
No, no changes.
Mr. Brophy.
yes.
Ms. Duroff.
Yes.
Mrs. Kratz.
Yes.
Ms. Nyman.
Yes.
Mrs. Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Brad Updegrove.
Yes.
Mr. Roger Updegrove.
Yes.
Mr. Zawada.
Yes.
Mr. Panarello.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, looking for the School Board of Directors to approve the proposed general fund final budget for 2024-2025 as presented.
Zawada moves.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Discussion?
Okay, first I want to, Ms. Torsia and Ms. Donicola, I want to thank you again for putting together a budget. You put a lot of time, a lot of effort into these budgets, and you have since you've gotten here. You look at what's required by the district, and at the same time, you have total respect for the dollars of the taxpayers, and you do the best you possibly can. And I have supported you and voted yes on all the budgets up to this point because of my belief in you. However, this year, that's not going to be the case. You have a budget where I'm going to have to ask the taxpayers to give an additional 3% of their money. At the same time as the board majority and board leadership are about to spend 1/3 of our capital budget on something that it's not designed to do. If you want to do a capital project, it should be funded outside of the money that's set aside for long-term maintenance issues and improvements. That being the case, I can't support a budget that's going to hand more money to a board that doesn't respect the money it's got. So I will be voting no on the budget.
Yeah.
I will not be supporting the budget either. I have 2 constituents in Region 1 who cannot afford new roofs, and we want to tax them higher. They have holes in their roofs. They're getting water in their houses. We just had the county reassess us. Not reassess us, but hike our taxes. People can't afford it. Jobs are not that plentiful out there, and good paying jobs are not out there. So how can we tax our people out of their homes? How can we take part of our capital funds project for a project that did not go through facilities, did not come from administration, and do this? Every time I go out somewhere, I'm hearing from people in Region 1, they cannot afford this. And I understand, we did the teacher contract. We have to do some of it. But when you're going to go spend money on a turf field, and we have Boyertown Elementary that needs upgrades, And Washington Elementary, I've been trying to get into, tomorrow it'll be 9 weeks. Haven't gotten in there yet. And I was just at a chorus over at Middle School West, and it probably would have been a great presentation, except all you heard was the piano. You heard very little of the students singing. They're telling me how bad the air conditioning is in there. So I need to get in over at Boyertown Middle School West also and find out what's going on. Money needs to be put back into the schools before we do anything. We're supposed to be here for education. And if we don't get our education scores up, our property values are going down. Turf fields is not going to improve our property value. Education will. And I'm here for education. I'd rather put the money for this Huey into getting another teacher for language before I do. I understand that, but you're going to be raising the taxes. You are.
No, that doesn't equate to that. It's your discussion time. Go ahead.
And I've never been rude to you, Mr. Panarello.
I'm not being rude to you.
You're interrupting me. When have I ever interrupted you?
Go ahead.
This is just not being fiscally responsible. Not at all. And the people are watching.
Which part, just so I understand?
All of it.
Raising taxes 3% isn't being fiscally responsible for the school district?
Not that high if we have money that we can spend like we are on turf fields.
But you can't take that money out of there and spend it on anything else.
We need to do the schools that we have.
They're all on the list.
And once that money's gone for turf fields, what do we have? Mrs.
Approximately
Denicola.
$15 million.
I'm betting that those turf fields go for at least $10 million.
No.
If not more.
Nope.
Mrs. Denicola, how long have you been here with us?
Since 2020.
So, when you came on board, how much was in capital funds?
Less than what we have now.
And-
I don't know the number offhand right now.
But you had to build that up. So we're at where we should be. And we go and use this money. How long is it going to take you to replace 10 million?
That will depend on our expenditures. It'll depend on our revenue sources.
But we're going to have to raise taxes in order to do that.
We will need to raise taxes to maintain our programs. We're raising taxes to maintain programs. We have not cut programs. We have even filled positions when teachers have retired. So we are not cutting programs. We, in every essence of the word, would like to add programs, but we can't raise taxes to the index to increase programming. But what we can do is preserve the programming we have. But in order to do that, it does require currently a necessary tax increase.
But if we didn't raise them 3%, okay, we raise them 3%, part of that is going to go to help bring back the capital projects, correct?
If there's excess at the end of the year, if our revenues have exceeded our expenditures, then that could be a discussion with the board to move additional funds to the capital projects.
So until our buildings are maintained at the level they should be for our children to be educated properly, I can't do it. I can't do it.
I would agree 100%. If this money, if that $21,000 could be put into our school district as buildings, as books, as teachers, I'd be the first one to say no to the tax increase for the next 10 years, because we wouldn't need it. Right now, you're looking at a 3% tax increase, which is a lot of money. I understand that. Equates to our, just using the averages of the school homes appraised values, it's $11 a month per household. Like I said, you look at just inflation, we're at 7-8%. The 3% isn't even covering the inflation costs of our supplies. We try to take our teachers, take care of our teachers. We did the contract. It's a contract that should and hopefully bring teachers here, because it's one of the better contracts in Berks County, and we were proud of that fact. So, you know, the money is still there to fix the concerns that you have right now. There'll be money left over after that to fix the concerns that you have right now.
We don't know what we need to fix.
Well, the ones that we know that we do need to fix are on the list, and are, basically, the money is there to be spent on it. So if we raise the taxes to 6% and the concerns that you have right now, or if we voted and did a referendum, we still couldn't use this money and use the other money that we would bring in as tax increases to pay for the improvements on the buildings. This is a specific fund strictly for that. If we went bankrupt tomorrow, that money wouldn't be able to save the school district. So I understand, I don't want to raise taxes. I live in the district, but this is something to keep the ability of this school district to try to be one of the best school districts in Berks County. And that's what we're all here for. That's what we have to do. And part of making it the best school district is, you know, facilities. And I agree with you. But everything that we've talked about is going to be fixed. And there is money to fix it. We don't have to raise specific taxes to fix. And Boyertown Elementary is the worst school, but there's money there. So if you can read the statement, the money is there. Your CFO, who you've got faith in, has told you there's money there. So I don't know what more we can do for you.
Ms. Deeroff, you're next.
I don't know how much money we expect to have left after we raise the taxes 3%, because we were told it's going to take 3% every year just to keep up with the teacher's contract. So I don't see any way we're going to have money left each year to replenish the account so we can fix the things that need to be fixed in our school. If the way the economy is, if there was so much money, and I know what you can use the money for and what you can't, I would never, ever do what we did. I would think of our taxpayers and cut them a break once, just like the state's trying to do now. They have rainy day money, and I read some articles of what they want to do with it. Number two, I asked questions about the budget, and I never got answers. In fact, I asked one yesterday, and I still didn't get an answer. So I'm going to have to vote no, because there's too many questions I have that aren't answered.
You have another question?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Not really a question, but to come back to Mr. Sawada. You know, Mr. Sawada, I know what the money can be spent for, but we have no idea. If I can't get in and Mr. Updegrove can't get into the schools to see what's going on, we have no idea what needs to be repaired. If I wouldn't have gone to my granddaughter's chorus recital, I wouldn't have known about some of the issues going on over there. So until I can get in the buildings, that's a big thing. Boyertown Elementary is one of the biggest. That is an old system of 55 years.
And I didn't disagree with you.
And until that's fixed, because we have no idea what that's going to cost us. None. Yes, there is some grant money out there, which Mr. Scott and Scott Shield and I did talk about just a few minutes earlier tonight. There is some grant money out there, but doesn't mean we're going to get it. Doesn't mean it's going to pay for it. It's called being fiscally responsible to this community. I ran on fiscal responsibility. How can I raise the taxes when I know there's 2 homes within 5 minutes of here? Not everybody's as lucky as you, Mr. Zawada.
Let's not get personal. Yeah, let's not do that. All right, let's move on.
There are people out there that can't afford things. And when is enough enough? When?
We're going to call to order now.
Mr. Brophy,
No.
Ms. Deeroff,
No.
Mrs. Kratz,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
No.
Mrs. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Brad Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Roger Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Zawada,
Yes.
Mr. Panarello.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next motion is for the Board of School Directors to approve, DeHuey Engineering, Inc. as the engineering consulting firm to represent the district's interest in the proposed artificial turf project, not to exceed $277,000 and subject to the solicitor administration approval on the final wording.
Panarello moves.
Sawada seconds.
Discussion?
Discussion?
Mr. Yeroff?
Good.
I didn't see the RFPs, what we asked for, but I tried reading what he sent in. Are we talking one field or two fields? When I first started reading it, it was one field without an S. So what did we ask for?
2 fields.
Then why do they refer it to one field and talk about Bangor School District?
They were showing projects they've done in the past.
No, this wasn't, that wasn't in that context where I read that. It was, well, it doesn't matter where it was. I read it. So this is for the 2 fields. And since when they were talking about a clubhouse or some kind of a building? Do we get to see what we asked in the bid on?
The RFP was posted publicly. We can, I believe it's already been pulled off.
That's nice. It might have been posted publicly. I tried to find it once I was told we had the, we were gonna award it, and I couldn't find it anymore.
We can have it sent to you.
That would be nice. But I can't believe we're doing this. Did you look at the tennis courts lately? I was here when he did work before. Tennis courts are so lovely, we have to blow them off with the leaf blowers with rains. Could ask Mr. Shield, he could tell you. We tried to get them fixed when he did the work for us before, and there was some story about they're allowed to be on such a grade or something. No, it might be on a grade, but not the grade we have. And I think there's a creek right there too. That was cool.
Yeah, Mary Ann.
Yeah, I'm done. They're not gonna say nothing.
Is this? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This won't be long. I guess I'd like to have the scope explained to me. And the reason for me asking what the scope actually is the original request that came into the room was for the girls' field hockey team to get a field to play field hockey on so that they could compete on a home field. That was the original request. I think I read on this engineering proposal, and that's why I'd like to have the scope explained to me, that we went from that to a field, a multi-purpose field, okay, dual fences, extra lights, a building, a bathroom, stands, the football field, road improvements, and walkways. In the project management world that I come from, that's called not only scope creep, that's called massive scope creep, and would be thrown out of the room if it came into the private sector with that. So also, if you go out there and look, you're going to look at the stadium we have, the seating. I think that seating costs us, what, $7 million for just that, and a concession stand and a bathroom. You really believe we're going to get all of that with all the drainage and all the environmental issues that'll have to be covered for $7 million? I think you may be dreaming. So yes, this probably needs a lot more discussion than we gave it. So it's going to be an easy no vote for me on this one. I don't even have to think much about it. But that's, once again, that's where I am. Also, in another thing in project management world, the there's a project manager on this from the engineering company, correct? Is that correct? Everybody read you read the, so there's a project management. So that's their project manager for the engineering, correct? Correct. So who's the project manager for the district? Who's going to be looking at it from the district?
We can always look at hiring a construction manager or our staff.
No, that's not how it works.
Well, we did Fidelity.
Let me go to proper process. You hire the project manager first, and then you go get the engineering company. So right now, we haven't had that portion, so we already put the cart first. So we're already moving out of the process on how you would do this to try and do it and not have a complete disaster later on. So you have there's nobody on our side that's even looking at this as a project manager in order to determine if what we're doing is in line with what we can do and is going to oversee the engineering company, and they're going to report to them. And there's nobody in that position yet. Yet we're going to put a $275,000 contract out to hire the engineering company. So does that make sense?
So the Mr. Shields should be the person on our side.
He cannot be. Do you have a PMP? Do you have a PMP
I do not
number?
have a PMP
do you have a
number.
PI certification?
I'm not PI
Do you have any?
certified.
Do you have any experience in project management?
Not on
So,
that
this
scope.
isn't a
Not
shot
on
at you,
turf.
Scott.
Right.
I'm just saying you're not the guy to do it. You're not qualified.
No. And
Okay,
I'm
we
not
both
saying
agree
that.
on that. So no, he can't be the one to do it.
We used to have it, the engineer.
So-
No, that's project management different.
So when we did the Title IX, we used Fidavia as our project manager.
So
for
have we contacted anybody prior to putting this out
At-
for bid for the engineering?
As direction from the board, we put together an RFP, which Sultanic's office did, and we put it out public bid. We received
correct.
2, Wilkinson's, Apex, and we received 1 from Dewey.
Okay.
Those were the only 2 we received.
Isn't there a minimum of 3 bids we're supposed to get on anything? It's government-wise?
We can if we don't get them.
No,
I mean,
this
this is a professional service.
Not on a professional services
Right.
matter.
Okay.
This is not like a bid for a project. This
Okay,
is a
that's fine.
professional
But
service.
still, we have no project manager. We haven't even looked into it yet. We're going to give out the bid. We're going to give out the engineering for what I consider huge scope creep from what the original request was.
The original request was to find out how much.
I'm talking about the original request when the girls' team came in this room and asked for a field.
Correct. And
What are we now giving them? We're giving them a sports complex. So does that sound like scope creep to you?
The only thing in the RFP that we're doing is natural grass to turf.
Forget the RFP.
Okay.
I'm talking about the original request for a project that came in here was for a turf field for the girls to have a home field to play on.
Correct.
That's a field. What I'm looking at now, when I looked at the engineering proposal, was a complex.
Well, what we were trying to find was the cheapest field to do.
No,
because
you're missing my point.
I get what you're saying.
You're missing my point. That's way beyond the scope. This is the same as when we were asked to put a traffic light up, and then we ended up being billed to put up an entire road change. So we're along the same line. So since I wasn't in for that, I'm absolutely not going to be in for this. That's it.
Once again, the reason there were 2 fields listed was because we were looking for the price per field and which would be the cheapest.
We have somebody from Dewey
oh,
here that would.
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Brophy, also, we were shooting for the max, and we were still, if it was going to come in at $10 million, I wouldn't vote for $10 million. We'd go back to the one field. We went and we're having everything broken down in the bid, okay? If it sits there and they want to put a new stadium in for the backfield, I'm straight up, I'm not. They don't have a stadium now, so why do they need a stadium?
Jeff, you haven't defined the scope of the project. When you leave it open to 1 or maybe 2, that is not defined scope on a project. And that's not how you have a successful completed project. I mean, we went through $60 million once already, and I still can't find out what we did for that. We had a stadium for football stadium. We put the stands up. That I don't think that was ever clearly defined. That went from $4 million to $7 million, and that was probably a much easier project than what you guys are looking for right now. So without a scope of what we're going to do, is sit down a project manager to lead it, I think you're looking for a disaster. But once again,
I appreciate your comment. I do. Okay, I do.
Good
Yes, sir.
evening,
You
everyone.
displayed scope.
My name's Chris Haller. I'm with Dewey Engineering. I can tell you that the proposal that was provided is for 2 turf fields. It does not include bleachers, track surfacing. There was an option in there, lights were mentioned, but that's not part of the scope. If the board so chooses to add lights, that's something that could be done, but it's not part of the scope. The scope in the proposal is for 2 fields. And my recommendation would be to do one as a base bid and the other one as an alternate, as a way to control prices. To address the concerns with project management, Dewey Engineering is a multifaceted company. I come from the construction management side of the firm. I've been with them for almost 20 years. We act as your representative during construction. We don't represent the contractor that bids the project. We don't represent any of the manufacturers. We have no affiliation with any of the manufacturers.
You're doing the engineering, correct?
Yes.
So you're representing the engineering company. So you don't have the company that is sponsoring the project has to have their own project manager, completely divorced from any of the subcontractors in it. As you're a subcontractor, you being our project manager responsible to us is not the proper way to do it. We need to give you a person that you report to on our side as a project manager who's fully qualified to work with you to get to the right and proper result. I don't see that any of that in place at the moment. I see us moving forward without having really discuss this out and determine what it needs. And now, this isn't anything at you guys. You guys provided exactly what you were asked to do. We didn't really define our scope by the fact that we see a bunch of different things in there. We should have given you this is the scope. Our project manager should have worked with you, and your proposal and your final proposal should have come back with that scope covered for those costs. And that's my only point here. This isn't to, I'm not throwing anything at you guys. You did exactly what you were asked to do. What I'm saying is we didn't do our job. I'll just leave it at that.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate your point. I can tell you I've done many projects with school districts where we did design in-house, and I represent you, and they've been very successful, and the school districts have been well represented. All I ask from this board tonight is give me a chance to prove it, that you will be satisfied with our work and the final product.
Nothing against your work and final product. We're not ready.
Okay, Marianne.
Yeah, I was under the understanding that we were looking at doing 2 fields, but everything was to be separated as far as cost. So when I saw this, and it's not separating this, so this is for 2, and I would prefer to see it, how much is it going to cost for 1, and then the other one if we so do, because we don't even have the bids for the fields yet. So to know what, I just can't agree with going ahead with this the way it's written.
So this step is to protect the district's interest. The next step, should the board so choose, would be to go out for proposals for 1 field with an alternate option of a 2nd field, to then bring that cost back to the board from people who respond to that request for proposal. This doesn't tie us to 2 fields in any way whatsoever. This is the firm that will be representing the district's interest for all of the providers that would be involved in any potential turf project. But we're not committed to 2 fields. We're not committed to any fields at this point. Even with approval of this agreement, we are not committed to doing 2 fields. There are other steps in the process where additional contracts will be coming back to the board for approval.
So if we went to 1 field, this price would come down, or does this remain this?
This price, that's the not to exceed price. So it will not go above that price.
Okay. I don't know. I think I would rather see a bid for the 1, like how much would it cost for them to do? Not, well, it won't exceed this, but if we decide as a board to go with just 1, then where are we going to be at with your bid?
Again, as the solicitor pointed out, this is a professional service. So should the board choose tonight to hire us, we will design the project, and there will be 2 fields designed. That doesn't mean you're bidding that. That just means that's the overall design. When it goes out for bid, again, my recommendation and what was reiterated is you bid 1 field as the base bid. And then you get a number for that and you see what that costs. You do an alternate bid to either add or deduct, however you want to set it up, for the second field. And then you see those 2 numbers, one for just the 1 field and the price for doing both fields. And at that point, the board can make the decision on, do we want to do 1 or do we want to do 2? But you have the design in hand to move forward. At that point, the board could decide to do just 1 and hold off on the second one for however long they choose. But you have the design in hand at that point.
Okay.
But that amount is, we're paying you that amount regardless, if we do 1 or 2. This is for you to design it and everything else.
When you say 1 or 2, as far as when you receive proposals from contractors to do the work?
If we do, which I haven't seen the scope of work, so I don't know where that was. I never got it, that I know of.
The proposal is to design 2 fields for you. How you choose to bid it, that comes along in the design process. If you choose to bid it as 1 base bid and another alternate, or if you choose to do both. But the proposal provided per the RFP is to design 2 fields.
The cost from you, from D. Huey, to do this is that 200 and some thousand.
Yes, to design 2 fields.
That's a design, 2 fields.
So we're paying that money out regardless of whether we go with 1 or 2. Or none.
Well, we have the design for 2 fields.
Wow, we have the design for 2
Yes.
fields.
You have the design for 2 fields.
But we only have to do 1.
You can choose to do none.
Yeah.
But it
You
doesn't
get
matter. We're
bids, but-
spending $277,000.
Nobody works for free.
I understand that. Nobody works for free, but that's money that's spent that we won't get back. And again, higher taxes. So I do have other questions and concerns. One being, since you're designing it and the reservoir and that, the drainage and the decomposition of these turf fields, what does that do to the ground?
I'm not sure of the question, but I can tell you this project will require going through DEP and will require an NPDES permit. So the state will be looking at this very closely to make sure that any water runoff from the field is addressed properly and directed properly and does not impact the wet area. I don't know if it's wetlands or not, but the wet area adjacent to the field.
All of our neighbors around here are well water. How's that going to affect their well water if we have an overflow and it goes into the ground?
Again, I go back to the way the field is designed. There's an under drain system, and that water is collected. It's collected around the track, and it's not just all free flowing. The stormwater management system will require to improve what's already there. So with a grass field, all that water just goes into the ground and just goes.
Right, but there's no contamination to our local peoples here and their wells. We have a major flooding situation.
And if it's caused by the areas where the turfs are, that will need to be addressed because DEP will require that.
But once you have the flood, it's over, it's done with, and then we're in trouble.
I don't disagree with that, but as I said, if there's issues now, they have to be addressed with this project because it will be required to have an NPDES permit.
My personal opinion at this point is we should be putting a hold on this until we get more answers, 1. And 2, I would like to motion that we put a referendum on the November ballot and see what the community says. So I'll make that motion if somebody wants to second it.
There's the motion on the floor.
You can't technically bring up that new motion under the Sunshine Law rules right now, because I don't think it qualifies as an emergent issue under the Sunshine Law regulations. But you can certainly make a motion to table this motion if you don't think it is appropriately timed, as you did indicate that.
Well, then I think we should be tabling this until we can get more information.
There's a motion to table, requires a second.
I'll second.
No discussion on the motion to table. A vote of yes will table the motion. A vote of no will keep the motion on the table.
Mr. Brophy?
A vote of yes will table the motion
Which motion? Motion for the,
to move forward with the Dewey Engineering contract.
so yes would table that motion?
Yes.
Yes. Just want to make sure I get it.
So, Mr. Brophy, your response was yes?
Yes.
Ms. Duroff?
Yes.
Mrs. Kratz?
No.
Ms. Nyman?
Yes.
Mrs. Scott?
No.
Mr. Brad Updegrove?
No.
Mr. Roger Updegrove?
No.
Mr. Zawada?
No.
Mr. Panarello?
No.
So the motion is still on the table.
Ms. Duroff?
Ms. Tyrrell?
Can I ask a question now?
The gentleman, sure.
The figures you're gonna get for us, or figure it out, or whatever, does that include, bleachers, a stadium, whatever it's gonna be called, bathrooms? Sorry. Bleachers or a stadium, whatever it's called, and bathrooms?
No, the proposal that, the RFP that requested 2 turf fields, and the proposal offered was for 2 turf fields.
So nothing else is?
We're not looking at doing anything with the bleachers, the track, the lights, walkways, toilets.
Okay, because we're sitting with the bleacher now, we're not using, paid how many $1 million for it, and 32 bathrooms. I'm certainly not gonna get caught again. Thank you.
Okay, vote. You have a question for him?
Yeah.
Okay.
This means you have to go up to Coberdale Township, correct? And get their input on this as to what they want?
We have to go through, for stormwater management, we have to go through the municipality, we have to go through DEP, we have to go through all those steps, we have to go through the conservation district. All those approvals are required in order to move forward with the project and put it out for bid.
But knowing what I know about the high school project and now this project, when it got to Coberdale Township, we now had to put bathrooms in, and we had to put more bathrooms in because I don't remember who it went to.
Because of the amount of bleachers.
So, Coberdale could come out and say they want this, this, and this.
I don't know what they're going to come back with, but in reference to the toilet rooms, again, that's a function of the number of seats that are provided for spectators. Here, all we're doing is changing it from a grass field to a turf field. So we're not increasing.
But you're putting a fence around it,
Double fence.
correct? You're putting a fence.
I believe so, yes.
I would imagine you're going to have to put bleachers there because where are the people going to be?
Again,
That's not what the scope
That
says.
wasn't part of the scope.
Well, I haven't seen the scope, so.
So we already met with Coberdale Township when you guys directed me to see the pricing to get an estimate on what this could potentially cost. We met with Coberdale Township. All they told us was that Field 1, where we were potentially going to put a turf field, was designated overflow parking. We're going to have to move that overflow parking to another area because of the, you can't park on turf. Plus, they also said that it's an impervious, so it's going from impervious to impervious, so the drainage would be built underneath, and they were okay with that. So that's what Coverdale Township relayed to me, and they were okay with the project.
Well, I'm sure we're gonna have to look at bathrooms, because unfortunately, where they're going now.
We're going to move to a vote now.
Excuse me.
We're going to move to a vote. I am interrupting you because right now what you're doing is you're dragging out something.
No, I'm not.
You already said you weren't voting for it. You don't need to beat this man up or Scott up.
I'm not beating.
Okay, we're done.
Mr. Brophy,
No.
Ms. Deeroff,
No.
Mrs. Kratz,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
No.
Mrs. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Brad Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Roger Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Zawada,
Yes.
Mr. Panarello.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we have the Board of School Directors to approve the personnel agenda items as presented. But before I present the agenda, I did want to make a note to the retirement of Officer Perez, and I just wanted to take a few minutes to recognize him and his 17 years that he has spent here in the Boyertown Area School District. Officer Perez started in the Boyertown Area School District in 2007-2008 school year. This year, he will be completing his 17th year as a school police officer. His role for the first 10 years of his tenure was to be a presence in our schools, provide lessons on internet safety and bullying, build rapport with students, and soon he became a mentor for students, needing a little extra supports. He coached and ultimately became really a rock star. If you were ever standing next to Officer Perez in the hallway, no matter who you were, if you were standing next to him, you were really ignored, and Officer Perez was the person who the students really wanted to greet and to be able to talk to. Students, all knew Officer Perez, and they would go out of their way to say hello. As times evolved and with the support of our local police departments, it was decided that Officer Perez's uniform should change slightly, and that in order to best protect our students, he should be armed. And we made the decision here in the Boyertown Area School District to have our first armed police officer. Over the past 7 years, Officer Perez's duties continued to remain the same. He continued to build rapport with new students coming into the district, mentor students. He coached, and he continued to teach his lessons. He went on countless home visits assisting our counselors with students who were truant or missing school for other reasons. And whenever asked to support someone, Officer Perez never said no, but how can I help? Officer Perez has since recruited 2 additional officers to join his team. Officer French, who is out in the lobby this evening, and Officer Boone. And I just wanted to recognize that we really are sincerely grateful to our officers and the work that they do in our schools, and to thank Officer Perez for his service, and to just share that on behalf of the school district, I'm sure that I can speak on everyone that he will be missed, and to congratulate him, and we hope that he finds a lot of satisfaction in his retirement and spending time with his newly adopted dog that he has now. So thank you for that opportunity to recognize Officer Perez. I also would like to point out that we have 2 additional people in our audience, Mr. Joe Slabnik for the Supervisor of Facilities and Operations, and we have found a senior naval science instructor and Commander Adam Krupa, who is also here in our audience. So I wanted to welcome them as well. So at this time, I'm looking for the Board of School Directors to approve the personnel agenda items as presented.
Also that everybody noticed, and we all found out this last week, that Mrs. Torsia has decided to take her leave of absence, her permanent leave of absence. I want to wish her all the best. I want to thank her for the time that she put in, like it was brought up earlier, coming up through COVID. She definitely was a leader in that field. The board at that time, for everything that was unknown, they basically made a team together that they thought was best for the students and the staff. I will say personally that we did agree to disagree on numerous things, but no matter what, she kept the students and her staff as her first reason for making her decisions. So I do want to say I appreciated working with her this last year, especially on executive committee. I got to learn so much more. And again, I do wish you all the luck. And if the boat gets bigger, I expect an invite.
Thank you.
I have a question on the camps. Is that something new we're doing, or did I miss it before? Wasn't it broken down like that, or what?
Our camps have been underway for the past summer, specifically since COVID, but our ESY program has been something that's been in place for an extended longer time, as well as our students in the park.
I was just wondering about the camps. I never.
The other camps are
I don't remember seeing it broke down like that.
probably a different way that Mr. Hahn is representing those. Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I would like to have the personnel agenda amended and have the first 6 professional staff put separately along with the mentors, please.
We can do this without amending the motion. You just want to vote on that separately?
Yes, please.
Okay. Just a translation. So if we could vote on that separately, that would conform with the request of Ms. Nyman.
So Ms. Sellers through Mr. Zazinski, and then
The 3 mentors.
Mary Beth, you want to repeat the motion with?
Trying to. So, the appointment of professional staff, Anna Sellers, Joy Galley, Kelsey Hagan, Haley, and what is it that you,
3 mentors.
She would like those voted on separately.
okay. So, there is a motion on the floor and there was a first and a second, so how do I divide that up, Mr. Sultanic? Since there's a motion already and a first, second on the personnel agenda as presented.
We can divide it up in that fashion. We've historically
Okay.
done it. You just do it into 2 pieces.
All right, so then we're going to be voting on everything with the exception of the
6 items.
6 items under the professional.
And the
appointments.
mentorship.
And the mentors.
Right. So that's the first motion. We have a motion on the table.
Right, and
okay.
yeah.
Whoever made the motion, are you agreeable to make that modification?
Yes.
And the second?
Yes.
Okay. So that's what we're going to do. The first motion, everything except those 9 items.
I have a question yet. I'm seeing we had 3 coaches have resigned, 2 of which are head coaches. What's our, I guess 2 things is, we have any reasoning for that happening? And second thing would be, what's our plan to make sure, I would expect head coaching positions aren't the easiest thing to fill. How are we moving forward on that?
Well, Mr. Hauk resigned due to his new role as an assistant principal, and Mr. Connick resigned due to obviously running a business and the needs to be here, conflicting with his everyday schedule as a contractor. We do have a plan in place, Mr. Palladino and myself, to obviously fill those roles and obviously make that process one that's obviously beneficial and positive for the district and keep people here in the district.
So you're starting that process right away, or?
We have.
Yeah, because it's, like I say, head coaches are
Correct.
probably not the easiest job to fill. Thank you.
Sure.
So looking for the Board of School Directors to approve the personnel items without the professional staff listed and their mentors.
Brophy moves.
Line and second.
Mr. Brophy,
Yes.
Ms. Deeroff,
Yes.
Mrs. Kratz,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman.
Okay, which one are we voting on first?
This is the motion to approve the personnel agenda item with the exception of the first 6 professionals and the related mentors.
So that's what we're voting on, those 6?
No, we're not, with the exception, we're voting on the personnel
then
agenda.
yes.
Accepting those 6 and the 3 mentors. Mrs. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Brad Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Roger Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Zawada,
Yes.
Mr. Panarello.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I think I'm all mixed up. I know, I thought I was voting on the
No,
professional.
no, you're voting for everything but the professional.
Then I wanted to know,
Can she change her vote?
can I do that?
Can she,
sorry.
can
Mr.
she change
Sultana,
her
can
vote?
Ruth
She didn't
change her
understand.
vote?
I'm all confused.
It really doesn't make a difference in the vote anyway, ultimately.
It passed.
I know, it does to me though.
Change it?
If the chair is willing, she can modify.
I'm fine with it.
Right?
I'm fine with it.
All right.
Now we're voting on the 6 professionals.
Right. Now I'm looking for the Board of School Directors to approve the professional staff listed as presented and their mentors.
Brophy moves.
Discussion? No.
Mr. Brophy,
Yes.
Ms. Deeroff,
Yes.
Mrs. Kratz,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
No.
Mrs. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Brad Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Roger Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Zawada,
Yes.
Mr. Panarello.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Public comment period number 2, Donnie Savage, state funding for public education.
Thank you, and I'd like to respectfully ask that I change my topic to personnel. Thank you. So I just wanted to thank Mrs. Torsia for her service to our district. As was said by multiple people, she came into the superintendent position in the midst of the pandemic and led our students and our staff through these very difficult times and has made great strides to recover. So I'm saddened that she's leaving, but I'm very happy to see her entering into the time of retirement. All of that Mrs. Torsia did with such grace and professionalism, and it will be hard to find someone to replace in that perspective. So thank you, Mrs. Torsia. I also want to address the board. You are about to embark on the most important job that you have of hiring a superintendent. Starting at this moment, the eyes of the prospective superintendent candidates are on you and everything you're doing here in this board meeting. And based on my experience with 2 extensive superintendent searches, I can tell you that the process is intensive, complex, and long. It can easily take the better part of a year. It can easily send you back to the drawing board multiple times. And until that next superintendent is hired and gets situated, things feel scary and unsettled for your employees and your students and your community. So that's another part of your leadership. I think I'll end there and say, I just ask you to take this seriously and put the time needed and study into it. And I wish you the best on this process.
Board comment period. Mr. Upthrow?
Yes, I kind of missed something on BCTC. I want to say that hosted the Land and Sea Air Challenge, a hands-on engineering program on April 25th of 2024. The competition is designed by the Penn State and the Department of Defense for high school students to learn the engineering process through the design and build different robotic systems. The systems completed in challenge that mimics missions encountered by the military, the National Security Agency, and the first responders. Teams from the BC Megatronics first place in the land and sea and third place in the air challenge. And that was Jonathan Menninger from Boyertown, and it was Alexis Galsas, I guess, from Boyertown. And I would like to say some of the board members that want to sit there and talk about what we spent on stuff ought to get their numbers a lot better, because we didn't spend $7 million on bleachers. If you want to do it, ask Scott and he'll give you the real number, but it wasn't $7 million for bleachers. Was it, Mrs. Torsia?
Oh, that's a number I'm
Yeah.
not going to remember. But
That was the number at the last meeting that we approved.
And it was $7 million, Scott?
No, this is for the bleachers.
Well, to tear the old stadium down and the bleachers.
Oh, you mean the
It's
grandstands?
more than bleachers. I said bleachers, bathrooms.
Yeah, grandstand. Yeah, snack bar.
Correct, 7 million. Okay.
I said the bleachers and the stadium and tear the old stadium down and the bleachers, put the new bleachers up. It wasn't $7 million.
I said bleachers,
No.
concession
I
stand,
ju-
and bathrooms.
I didn't mention the bathrooms. You did.
Yeah, so I said it was $7 million.
Well, I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about the stadium and the bleachers.
Well, that's what I was, okay, never mind.
Ms. Nyman?
No, I think enough was said tonight.
Ms. Kratz? Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Mrs. Torsia, just want to say, we don't always agree, but I did always appreciate you.
I'm going to be here a little bit longer.
I know, and I'm not going to cry. So, but I do have to ask one last time. I know I said one last time before. For the report on this, the climate survey that went out, and you know how I would like them to be presented to the board, and the reasons being, and I wanted to bring it to the board because maybe you guys don't want to see it. So. The reason is because of all the decisions that the board has to make concerning policy, concerning personnel, concerning, even projects, concerning curriculum. To have these surveys is important. I think it's within our right to have the surveys shown to us, totaled by grade, multiple choice questions with totals, and especially to see what the parents and teachers are feeling, because we do make a lot of decisions, and the survey went out, and I would just like to see the raw data on that. I really don't want to see a 2,000-page report. I'd rather just have some links that I can go to and look at third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade. And it isn't and I'm really looking for common threads, like what are we doing really well? It's not that I always look for the worst. I know you think I'm one of those way over here people, but I don't. I look for the best, and I just look to see what pops up. And because mental health is an issue across the nation with our kids, it's another reason why I believe the board just needs to have a clearer picture of Boyertown.
And as I shared, and I will continue to share, that as soon as my administration has the opportunity to vet the information, to go through it themselves, it's not been 100% vetted, as I shared that there are things that have come up that, the end of the school year, we are in the process. And once we get to go through it all, because we're the ones that are going to be taking actionable items on it that may not incorporate, more funding or decisions from the board because it's management and not governance and what we need to do with the data. We will share it out with you. There's nothing for us to hide. It's feedback, and it's for reflective for us in how we can turn our buildings around to meet the requirements of the things that we were cited for through our special education monitoring, to make sure that we are meeting our students where they need to be met, that we're making sure that we're not over disciplining. These are all the things that we do. And, we're happy to share the information, but we want to take the time to go through it. And when I'm saying there's thousands of pages for us to go through. So I feel that, that's the right way to go to vet the information, and then certainly let us, be able to share it out once the administration has an opportunity to go through it. So.
Well, I understand that we'll probably at some point get a presentation on what was done, but I'm wanting to see the actual information, not everybody's.
Yeah. And that's not a problem, but we just want to see it first. So we haven't been through all of the information at this point. So, yeah.
All right. Well, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't see why the board, I don't know how your process is being stopped by us seeing it. I'm not going to come to you and say, I don't like this, I just want to see it.
Ms. Deeroff?
I had talked before, got laughed at about the trophy we got for the great fields that we had at the football field. And I'd like to know where that trophy got to. I think that should be proudly displayed. Probably the athletic director might know, I don't know, but I like to, some of the stuff just disappears around here. That's one thing. Another thing, who's on the TSI team? I'd like to know what board members are on and what parents, a list of who's all on that. And why, I've been getting calls, why are the summer hours different for each school building? I wouldn't say each, but different hours for different buildings, let's put it that way.
Different buildings are starting their 10-hour shifts at different times. If a building that's manned by one or two people, like Earl Elementary, for instance, wants to start at 6 o'clock in the morning, then we want to be able to advertise that if you would like to see someone or speak to someone, that they'll be there available at 6 a.m. To whatever the end time would be. I believe that your request was that we make sure that we're, publishing out there the amount of hours that we are at work, and if that's when the building's opening, so we're giving some flexibility. But they're not closing before 4 o'clock. For the most part, most buildings are operating 7 to 5, but there is some flexibility, with folks.
Okay. And one other thing, I should have announced this earlier, and I didn't. I apologize. For those people that knew Gene Reinheimer, maybe you work with him here at Boyertown, or you had him as your social studies teacher during his 36 years of teaching at Boyertown, along with his wife Nikki. We lost a great man on April 25th. Gene was the most wonderful, kind, gentle soul. He never had a bad word to say about anyone. He left his wife, 7 wonderful grandchildren, 3 children, and he will be greatly missed by everybody in Douglas Burks. Also, I want to congratulate Mr. Coach Moyer for being the first inductee, I believe, in the Boyertown High School Baseball Hall of Fame. Coach Moyer graduated from Boyertown and has been involved with the high school baseball program for the last 42 years. He has coached on many players over the years and has gone on to Division I baseball, and a few who like he played in the minor leagues. He's a devoted family man who spends countless hours away from his family so he can coach a sport for which he has great passion for. Thank you, Coach Moyer, for your time and dedication to the student athletes of the Boyertown School District over the last 42 years. We were certainly lucky to have you.
I think maybe we should consider trying to pass a unanimous resolution to Harrisburg for the state funding for public education. I know it may seem trivial, but if anything, maybe it could show some unity in this room, because we all know that we could use that money from Harrisburg, and it's even in our budget, and we're not even sure if we're getting it yet. So I think that'd be a really great thing if we could do that.
Mr. Updegrove, I had it on my list also. I think it's strength in numbers, and we can't afford to get any cuts at this point. Things are tough enough. I do also want to thank Officer Perez. I can only see him probably being one of the most influential persons in our school district for the last 17 years. These kids started with him and finished with him, and he set a fine example. So I know we're going to miss him, and I wish him the best of luck. I want to try to end tonight on some of the stuff on a positive note. I mean, some of the things that are happening at this school district blows me away, and the community, and it shows just how special we really are in this area. I mean, our youth at the government coordination was phenomenal. Sometimes as you look or listen to things outside, some people don't even know who the current president of the United States is and who was our first president. Our FBLA group is phenomenal. They've had many awards. The new memorial statement for veterans that they designed, as far down as our Eagle Scouts. They're all part of our community, and they show how good our community can be when they come together. Our BCTC students, if you notice, we've got a lot of firsts, and that stems right from the families, through their teachers, through the community. So I think we do live in a special community. I don't want to see this community go backwards. I came back to this community. I grew up in this community. So again, last, I do want to thank Mrs. Torsha again. And I know it's been a long night, so I'm done.
I've got nothing further to add.
I want to put a big congratulations out to the girls' baseball team. They're moving on. I mean, they play tomorrow night at Springford, and that's for a championship.
Upcoming meetings, we have one on May 28th, Board of School Directors meeting at 7 p.m. here at the Ed Center. June 11th and June 25th will be the meeting for the adoption of the final general fund budget.